3 days before my wedding, I found Noah in the Golden Heart Tavern with 2 women draped across his lap. The journey was supposed to be simple. Deliver the ceremonial wine my mother had chosen for our mating feast. Instead, I stood frozen in the doorway, watching my future husband kiss a blonde she-wolf while a brunette whispered in his ear, their laughter weaving through pipe smoke and ale-soaked air. He saw me. Our eyes locked across the crowded room, and for one breathless moment, I waited for shame, for panic, for anything that looked like regret. He smiled, raised his cup in mock salute. My hands moved before my mind caught up. I crossed the tavern floor, aware of every eye turning toward the noble Omega in her fine traveling cloak, so out of place among the common wolves and soldiers. Noah leaned back in his chair, still smirking, as if this were all some game I was too delicate to understand. I lifted the ceremonial wine, the bottle my mother had carried for miles, blessed by the pack elders for our union, and I poured every drop over his wine-flushed, faithless head. Then I turned and walked out into the night, leaving my future pooling red on the tavern floor behind me. Wine dries fast when the night wind is cold. By the time the tavern's lanterns were a smear of amber behind me, the ceremonial vintage had already stiffened the front of my dress into something brittle and sticky. My boots slid on ruts and old mud, my cloak snapping around my legs like a restless shadow. Every breath burned hot with humiliation, then blasted white into the dark, as if the world were determined to see my shame. 3 days to the wedding, Kate, my mother had said that morning, smoothing the cloak over my shoulders. Do this errand for me. Bring back the wine. Think of it as a blessing. Blessings do not usually include finding your future husband with his hands under another woman's skirts. The forest road curved ahead, torchlight long gone, the night swallowing the noise of the tavern behind me. I walked anyway. I did not know where I was going. I only knew it had to be away. Away from Noah's smirk, away from my parents' inevitable excuses, away from my own reflection in the polished silver that would have looked so calm, so forgiving, while I slowly died by inches at his side. Twigs snapped under my boots. Somewhere in the dark, an owl called. My heart pounded loud enough to drown both. I did not hear the horses until they were almost on top of me. The first glow of moving lanterns bled through the trees, followed by the low clatter of hooves and the soft jingle of harness. I froze in the middle of the road, breath catching. No one sensible walked alone at night, not on a border road like this. Bandits, rogues, or worse, patrols, who would know exactly whose daughter I was and exactly how much trouble I had just caused. Off the road, I whispered to myself, but my feet would not move. The procession emerged in a spill of light and steam. 6 riders in dark leathers, a carriage behind them, another string of pack horses tied nose to tail. Their cloaks bore the same crest, a silver wolf rearing against a field of black. Even before I saw the banner snapping in the wind, I knew whose men these were. We all grew up on the stories. The Alpha King is passing through, my father had said at supper last week, voice lined with careful neutrality. Keep your head down, girl. Do not draw attention. So, of course, I had poured wine over my mate's head in a public tavern. Hold, a voice called. The column slowed. One rider nudged his horse forward, lifting a lantern. Light spilled across the road, catching me squarely. I blinked against it, raising a hand. There, the man said, on foot. Another horse moved, hooves loud in the sudden hush. The rider who came forward did not need a crest. Power walked ahead of him in the air, the way heat walks ahead of a fire. His stallion was dark, its breath pluming like smoke, and the man on its back wore no hood despite the cold. Alexander. I had seen his face only once before, from a distance at a council gathering when I was 13 and too shy to do anything but stare at the floor. Up close, he looked sharper, like the stories had been carved down to bare truth. Strong jaw shadowed with stubble, dark hair tied at the nape of his neck, eyes so pale they reflected the lantern light. Those eyes moved over me in one slow, assessing sweep. My ruined gown, my fine cloak. The wine stains dried like old blood on my hands. Interesting, he said. My mouth was dry. I will step aside, Your Majesty. My voice came out hoarse, scraped raw by shouting back at Noah. By the way my heart had torn when no one in that tavern had stood up for me. I will be out of your way in a moment. He did not move. Where are you going, noble Omega? He asked. The last words were not mocking, but they held a kind of precision, as if he were fitting me into a pattern only he could see. Home, I lied. Home was behind me, but the word felt safer than the truth. Nowhere. In the opposite direction of your pack lands? A faint lift of his brow. At night, on foot, in a gown that smells like 6-year vintage and bad decisions. Heat flashed under my skin. With respect, my route is not your concern. It is when you are standing in the middle of my road, he said mildly. And when every wolf within 50 miles will gossip about the runaway with wine on her hands the moment I pass. There it was again, that awareness that I was not just Kate, the girl whose sisters stole her hairpins and who burned bread if left alone with the oven too long. To him, I was a symbol, a problem, a potential bargain. I straightened, fingers curling into the ruined fabric at my sides. If you intend to drag me back to my pack, do it, I said. I am too tired to argue. One of the riders behind him shifted, clearly surprised by my tone. Alexander only tilted his head, studying me. Why would I drag you anywhere without knowing what I am delivering? He asked. Tell me what happened. The words crowded behind my teeth. Noah in the corner booth. That blonde giggling into his neck. The way he had looked at me like I was the one being ridiculous. My father's inevitable sigh. My mother's careful, fixed smile. This can be worked out, Katie. Think of the alliance. Instead, I said, my mate broke his vows before he ever made them. I responded poorly. That is all. His gaze flicked to my stained hands again, then back to my face. For a moment, something like amusement touched his mouth. Poorly, he repeated. Did his face catch the worst of it? Despite myself, I felt the corner of my own mouth twitch. His hair, his lap, the tavern floor. Good aim. He let the reins slacken and leaned a little closer, not enough to be threatening, only enough that I could see the faint line of an old scar near his temple. Here is the difficulty, Kate, of noble Omega parents who will be furious. If I ride past and leave you here, some patrol will scoop you up within the hour, and your scandal will become their story to trade. If I take you back myself, I walk into the middle of a domestic mess with witnesses who will swear I interfered. Then ride on, I said. Let someone else have the story, and waste the most interesting thing I have seen all week? His smile was brief, gone as soon as it appeared. No, I am far too selfish for that. He glanced over his shoulder. Spare horse. One of his men led a smaller mare forward. Alexander dismounted with an easy swing, boots hitting the road with a soft thud. He stood very close now, taller than I remembered, the scent of cedar and cold air clinging to him. Here is my offer, he said. Ride with us until dawn. You can warm up, think, perhaps decide whether you truly want to go home or simply believe you should. When the sun rises, if you still want to return, I will see you delivered to your father's door with your reputation as intact as we can pretend it is. If you do not. He paused. We will discuss alternatives. My heart thudded hard enough to hurt. Every instinct told me this was dangerous. Riding with the Alpha King was not the act of a sensible girl who wanted a quiet life. But then, pouring a wedding feast's wine over her cheating mate's head was not either. You do not even know me, I said. His eyes did not leave mine. I know you saw something you could not stomach and chose to act in public rather than swallow it in private. That is enough to make me curious. Curious. Not pitying. Not scolding. Curious. The road behind me led back to the Golden Heart, to whispers and forced smiles and a wedding dress that already felt like a shroud. The road ahead glowed with lantern light and the possibility of at least a few hours in which my future was not yet decided. I took a breath so deep it hurt my ribs. Until dawn, I said. Alexander offered his hand. His palm was warm, calloused, steady as he helped me into the saddle. No spark shot through me at his touch, no overwhelming rush of fate. Only a low, unsettling awareness that this choice would not be easy to undo. He mounted his stallion again, gave a soft command, and the column began to move. As the forest closed around us, and the tavern's ghostly music finally faded, I wrapped my cloak tighter and let the rhythm of hooves and creaking leather fill the spaces where fear and exhilaration wrestled. I had run from the life everyone expected me to live. For now, at least, I was not running alone. Dawn found me pretending I had slept. The camp had been a loose circle of tents and bedrolls around a dying fire. Alexander's men moved with the quiet rhythm of wolves, used to traveling hard and often, their voices low as they kicked earth over coals and tightened girths. I lay on the pallet one of the soldiers had ceded to me, cloak pulled to my chin, watching the sky go from ink to washed-out blue. My thoughts had not stopped moving all night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Noah's face as the wine hit him. Surprise sliding into anger. Heard the brittle edge in my father's voice as he called my name. In between those memories, another image kept intruding. Alexander, outlined in lantern glow, saying, "I know enough to be curious." Someone cleared their throat near my feet. "Lady Kate?" I pushed myself up on my elbows. A young runner stood there, breath puffing in white bursts, hair mussed from hard riding. He smelled faintly of our pack, pine, river stone, the smoke from our own hearths. For one aching moment, homesickness stabbed so sharp I almost reached for him. "Yes," I said. My voice came out rough. "That is me." He held out a sealed envelope with both hands, as if it might shatter. "From your parents," he said. "And a message from Alpha Harrow. They request your immediate return." Request. We both knew that was a generous word. My fingers trembled just a little as I broke the seal. My mother's handwriting spilled across the page in neat, looping strokes, the ink blotched where it had clearly been written in haste. "Kate, my heart, we heard about the incident at the Golden Heart. Your father is distressed. Noah's parents are furious. You know how much depends on this alliance. Come home at once. We will talk and fix this. Everyone makes mistakes. Please do not do anything else rash. You are loved. Remember that." "Mama." Beneath her words, my father's hand added a short, hurried line. "You will apologize to Noah and to his family. We will salvage this. Come now." The sentence felt like a door slamming. I folded the letter carefully so my hands would not crumple it. "Is there a written order from the Alpha?" I asked the runner. He swallowed. "Only that we were to bring you back as quickly and quietly as possible." "Of course. No signature, no decree, just pressure." A shadow fell across us. The runner straightened so fast his boots scuffed the earth. "Report," Alexander said. The boy's nerves were almost palpable. "Messages from Crescent Moon, Your Majesty." "For the lady. They ask that we return her at once." The Alpha King took this in without flicker of expression. His attention shifted to me. "And what does the lady say?" he asked. Everyone within earshot stilled, though they tried to pretend otherwise. Harness buckles paused. A kettle stopped clattering. My answer would be a small thing, just words in the cold air, yet it felt like the hinge the whole morning balanced upon. I thought of my mother's "You are loved," of my father's "We will salvage this," as if my dignity were a broken chair to be glued back together and tucked in a corner. Of Noah, wet and furious, shouting after me as I left. "I say I need time," I replied, "at least until we reach the next crossroads." The runner blinked, clearly out of his depth. Alexander studied me for a heartbeat too long, as if weighing more than the request. Then he looked at the boy. "Tell your Alpha," he said, "that his daughter is currently under my protection. She will return when she chooses, not when others panic. If they wish to discuss alliances, they can send proper envoys instead of half-frozen children." The runner went pale. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Eat before you ride back," Alexander added, already turning away. "My quartermaster will see to it." It was a kindness, and also a message. Even the messenger would leave his camp better than he arrived. I was not sure if that comforted or terrified me. When the boy hurried off, Alexander's gaze returned to me. "You look as if you swallowed a thorn bush," he said. "Walk with me." I followed him toward the edge of the camp, boots crunching over frost-hardened ground. The forest loomed close, branches rimed with silver, breath of horses hanging like ghosts between trees. "You read the letter," he said, once we were out of easy earshot. "Yes, and my parents are worried, embarrassed, and painfully confident they know what is best for me." I tried for a lightness I did not feel. In other words, nothing has changed. The corner of his mouth twitched. "They want you to apologize." "Of course." I hugged my cloak tighter around my shoulders. "Publicly, I imagine. Perhaps kneeling. And marry the man regardless. That is the goal." He was quiet for a few steps. "You sound," he said slowly, more resigned than outraged. "Because outrage was easy. Resignation was what came after you had picked your battles and lost most of them. I love my family, I said. They have worked their whole lives to keep us all secure. This alliance matters. Trade, protections, influence. I understand that. I do not want to be the stone that breaks the structure they built. But you also do not want to live with a man who raised his cup to you, while another woman sat on his knee. The memory burned, sharp and humiliating. No, I whispered. I do not. So. He stopped, turning to face me fully. What do you want? Kate. The question hung there, startling in its simplicity. Not what do you owe, not what will happen if you refuse, but what do you want? I opened my mouth, closed it. The answer had always seemed indulgent, dangerous. Wanting things for myself felt like reaching for meat already claimed by higher-ranked wolves. I want, I said slowly, to not be the only one losing something. His brows knit. Explain. If I go back, I apologize, I marry Noah, and everyone sighs with relief. My hands had balled into fists inside my sleeves. I forced them to relax. He loses nothing. My parents lose nothing. Their alliance is intact. I lose my pride and any hope of being taken seriously when I say no. You think they will not respect you again. I know they won't, I said. They will love me, but they will not listen. He considered that. The morning light caught in his pale eyes, making them almost translucent. Very well, he said. You have until we reach the northern crossroads. 2 days' ride. During that time you travel with us. You watch, you think. You decide what you are willing to surrender and what you are not. A pause. And when you choose, it will be your choice, not a letter's. Something in my chest loosened, just a fraction. Permission to think, to breathe. Thank you, I said. Do not thank me yet, he replied. My motives are rarely pure. A runaway noble Omega who poured wine over her mate's head is useful leverage. The fact that you interest me only makes it more complicated. The bluntness stole my words for a moment. At least he did not pretend altruism. We returned to camp. Men moved aside as we passed, nodding to him, flicking curious glances at me. Alexander helped me mount the same mare as the night before. His hand at my waist was steady, impersonal, yet heat crept up my spine, where his fingers pressed through the cloak. I told myself it was only the chill of morning leaving my bones. We rode north. The day unfolded in a rhythm of hooves and creaking leather, the occasional call of birds. Alexander rode close enough that I could hear his quiet exchanges with his captains, discussions of border disputes, supply routes, minor grievances between packs. It felt like listening in on another world. One where choices were weighed in territory and grain, not just in who a girl would marry. Once, when the mare stumbled on a hidden stone, I lurched forward. Alexander's hand shot out, catching my forearm before I could slide from the saddle. His grip was firm, his thumb pressing against the inside of my wrist where my pulse leapt. Careful, he murmured. I am fine, I said, though my heart was beating too fast. I could not tell if it was from the near fall or his touch. He released me quickly, as if remembering himself. At midday, we stopped to rest the horses. A cook handed out thick slices of bread and cheese. I found a fallen log and sank onto it, stretching legs stiff from riding. My fingers still smelled faintly of old wine whenever I lifted them near my face. May I? I looked up. Alexander stood there with his own ration, indicating the space beside me. It felt absurd to deny the Alpha King a seat, so I nodded. We ate in silence for a few moments. The camp buzzed quietly around us, men joking, metal ringing as someone checked a sword's edge. The normalcy of it soothed my frayed nerves. You are quieter than last night, he said eventually. Last night I was running on anger, I replied. Today I have room to think. I am not sure that is an improvement. He tore off a piece of bread. Thinking rarely feels good, but it does prevent one from drowning. I hesitated, then asked, Do you always speak in metaphors, Your Majesty? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Only when I have not yet decided how honest to be. And how honest will you be with me? He turned his head, studying me again with that too perceptive gaze. Honest enough, he said. You are not my responsibility, Kate. Returning you would be easier. But easy has never built anything worth keeping. I want to see what you do when given a sliver of space. A sliver, I echoed. How generous. Do not mistake me for generous, he said softly. I am selfish. If you choose differently than your parents expect, it will send interesting ripples through the packs. If you do not, I will at least know I gave you the chance. It was unnerving, being both a person and a potential move on someone else's board. Yet he was not wrong. Either way, my decision would matter to more than just my family. As we rode on through the afternoon, our horses often drew abreast. Once our knees brushed, I felt the contact all the way up my thigh. When the wind shifted, his scent reached me: cedar, cold air, something older and wilder beneath. My wolf, usually quiet and biddable, lifted her head in hesitant interest. Not lightning, not an overwhelming pull, just an awareness, low and steady, like the first roll of distant thunder. Late in the day, clouds thickened, turning the light flat and gray. We paused to adjust cloaks. A gust of wind snapped mine wide. I fumbled with the clasp. Before I could catch it, Alexander stepped closer, fingers closing over the fabric near my throat to steady it. His knuckles brushed bare skin. Heat skittered across my chest, entirely disproportionate to the touch. Hold still, he said, eyes on the clasp. His voice had gone a shade deeper. I obeyed, not trusting my own hands. When he finished, neither of us moved for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Then he stepped back, clearing his throat. Storm coming, he said briskly. We will make camp earlier than planned. Of course, I answered, as if my heart had not just stuttered in my chest. That night, as I lay on the bedroll again, listening to rain begin to patter on canvas, my mother's letter burned in my memory. So did Alexander's question. What do you want? I did not have a complete answer yet. But as the wind howled outside and the camp settled into restless sleep, I knew one thing with aching clarity. For the first time in my life, I wanted the choice to be mine. By the time the stronghold rose out of the mist, my spine ached from the road and my thoughts ached from indecision. Thornkeep, or whatever name the locals used in hushed tones, was less a castle and more a stone beast crouched against the mountains. High walls, narrow windows, towers like watching eyes. The gates groaned open as Alexander's party approached, wolves in human form lining the courtyard, heads bowing as he passed. Beside him, on my smaller mare, I felt like a smudge of wrong color on a finished painting. Remember, he had said before we rode through, voice low enough that only I could hear. You are a visiting noblewoman from the southern valleys. They will not question it as long as you do not flinch at the lie. I am an excellent liar when required, I had replied, though my heartbeat did a betraying little stutter. Now, as we dismounted in the courtyard, that lie took its first breath. A woman approached, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, gray threaded through her dark hair. She wore authority, like a cloak. Your Majesty, she said, bowing. Welcome home. You have brought a guest? Alexander's hand came to the small of my back, barely a touch, just enough to guide me forward. Lady Kate of the Southern Rivers, he said. She will be staying as my guest for a time. Her gaze flicked over me, quick and assessing, lingering on my traveling cloak, my worn boots, the way I resisted the urge to twist my hands. Welcome, my lady, she said. I am Mara, steward of this household. Anything you need, you ask me. There was no deference in her tone, only practicality. It steadied me. Thank you, I said, inclining my head in what I hoped was the proper measure of polite but not arrogant. Alexander released my back. The absence of his hand left my skin oddly aware. Show her to the guest wing, he told Mara. She will dine with us this evening. I want her rested by then. Yes, Your Majesty. He was already turning toward a waiting cluster of captains, cloak swirling. As he moved away, his gaze brushed mine once, brief as a spark. Rest. As if sleep would come easily here. Mara led me through stone corridors, softened by tapestries, battles, wolves, moon phases, stitched in careful thread. Servants flowed around us, carrying linens, jugs, trays. No one stared outright, but curiosity prickled the air, subtle as static. My rooms were more than I expected. A small sitting area with a hearth, a bed heaped with quilts, a washstand with a steaming basin, a fire already burned, chasing the mountain chill. If you wish to change before supper, there are gowns in the wardrobe, Mara said. We keep a selection for guests. Adjustments can be made tomorrow. The bell pull is there if you need assistance. She turned to go, then paused. "Forgive the question, my lady," she said, "but are you in some kind of trouble?" My heart stuttered. "Why would you ask that?" "Because the Alpha King does not bring strangers home on a whim," she said matter-of-factly, "and because you look like someone who is waiting for something unpleasant to catch up." Honesty warred with caution. In the end, I offered a thin sliver of truth. "I had an argument with my intended," I said. "My parents would prefer I apologize and pretend it never happened. And you?" "I would prefer not to." Her eyes softened, just a fraction. "Then rest, Lady Kate. The world will still be demanding things of you by morning." When she left, I exhaled so hard I swayed. Alone at last. The gowns fit too well to be coincidence. Simple, high-waisted dresses in deep colors. When I chose one of dark green and laced it myself, I caught my reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. I looked like a version of myself that might have existed if I had been born in a different pack, with different parents and no Noah. The thought was both comforting and cruel. Supper was held in a long hall, lit by sconces and a great hearth. Alexander sat at the head of a moderately sized table, not the distant throne-like setup of my own Alpha's feasts. Doors had been left open to the wider hall, where lower-ranked wolves ate and drank at their own tables, noise and warmth spilling in. Mara guided me to a seat at Alexander's right. To his left sat a dark-skinned man with laugh lines at the corners of his eyes, a warrior's build, and a relaxed, assessing gaze. "This is Rianne, my battle captain," Alexander said as I took my seat. "Rianne, Lady Kate." "An unexpected pleasure," Rianne said, nodding. Across from us, a compact woman with ink-stained fingers and sharp cheekbones gave me a brief smile. "And that is Lysa, my advisor on matters of law and treaties." "Welcome." "Lady Kate," she said. "We rarely get visitors who are not here to argue." "Give her time," Alexander murmured. "She may yet argue." It was a joke, but something about the way his eyes glinted made my stomach flip. The meal was hearty and simple. Roasted meat, root vegetables, fresh bread. Conversation flowed around patrol rotations, a minor border dispute between two neighboring packs, the repair of a collapsed bridge. I listened more than I spoke, learning the rhythms of this place. At one point, two young wolves at the far end of the inner circle table began muttering hotly, voices rising. "It was my turn," one snapped. "You were late," the other shot back. "You always are. I am not losing a prime patrol slot because you cannot haul yourself out of bed." Alexander's attention shifted that way, but he did not intervene at once. Instead, his gaze slid to me, thoughtful. "This is what you do, is it not?" he said quietly. "Soften tempers, mediate." My cheeks warmed. Among my own, yes. Strangers may not care to hear my opinion. "Try," he suggested. "Consider it practice." Before I could overthink it, I rose, carrying my cup as an excuse. The two young men fell silent as I approached, one flushing, the other scowling. Both were clearly surprised to be addressed by a guest. "Forgive the interruption," I said. I could not help overhearing. "You were arguing about Dawn Patrol, yes?" "It is nothing, my lady," the scowling one said. "We will sort it out." "Probably by bloodshed," the other muttered. I hid a smile. "In my pack?" I said. "We have a simple rule for this. If two wolves want the same slot, the one who was late gives the choice to the one who was on time. But the one who was on time owes the other a favor later, one they can call in when they are the one running behind. It keeps grudges short." They exchanged a glance. "That is not unfair," the on-time one admitted. The late one huffed. "You would make me owe him a favor?" "I would make you both owe each other the courtesy of an occasional mistake," I said gently. "Unless you plan to be perfect for the rest of your lives." A reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. "Fine. He takes Dawn. But he owes me his dessert tonight." "Done," the other agreed. The tension bled away. They returned to their plates. As I walked back to my seat, I felt Alexander's gaze like a tangible weight. "Well handled," Lysa murmured when I sat down, "and with minimal bloodshed." "Disappointing," Rian said dryly. "I was taking bets." Alexander said nothing, but when our eyes met, something like quiet approval lived there. Later, when the meal ended and the hall began to empty, he caught my arm lightly as I moved to follow Mara. "A moment, Lady Kate." His fingers circled my wrist, warm and firm. The contact was brief, but a strange prickle ran up my arm, like the echo of a spark that had not quite happened. Nearby, a guard's head snapped up, eyes narrowing as his nostrils flared, as if he had scented something odd. Alexander released me at once, masking it by gesturing toward a side corridor. This way. The hall we stepped into was narrower, lit by torches, lined with old tapestries. The noise of the main hall faded, replaced by the soft hiss of flame. "You mediate well," he said. "Have you always?" "I grew up between louder siblings," I said. Learning to keep the peace was survival. "And yet you poured wine over your mate's head instead of smoothing things over." "There are limits," I replied. My voice came out sharper than intended. "Even for me." He stopped beside one of the torches, turning so the light sculpted the planes of his face. "Have you thought more about your future?" he asked. "The crossroads are behind us now." "Every waking moment," I said, "and some sleeping ones." And my parents still want me to apologize and marry Noah," I said. "Noah wants his pride restored. My pack wants the alliance. No one has written to ask what I want." "I did," he said quietly. "Yes," I admitted. "You did." Silence fell, thick and humming. The torch crackled. Somewhere further down the corridor, a door shut. "What do you see when you look ahead?" he asked. "Say you return." "What does your life look like in 10 years? My throat tightened. "Pups. Duties. Smiling at gatherings while the story of the tavern becomes a funny tale my friends tell about my wild youth." I swallowed. "And every time Noah's hand lands somewhere it should not, someone will say he cannot help it. You know how some alphas are. It will be my job to pretend it does not hurt." His eyes darkened, silver ringed with storm. "And if you do not return?" he asked. "I do not know," I whispered. "Which is both the terror and the temptation." He reached up, as if to touch my face, then stopped halfway, fingers curling. "You are not powerless here," he said. "You are not a pawn unless you allow yourself to be. Remember that." The words warmed and burned at once. As he turned to leave, his hand brushed my wrist again in passing. The same strange prickle flared, stronger this time, like a tiny current. Down the corridor, a young guard who had been leaning against the wall jerked upright, eyes wide, ears seeming to twitch though he was in human form. "Did you feel that?" he blurted. Alexander's gaze flicked to him, cool and warning. "Feel what?" The guard hesitated. "Nothing, my king." Must have been the torch heat. But as I walked back to my rooms, my skin still buzzing where Alexander had touched me, I knew it had not been the torches. Something inside me had stirred. That night, sleep did come, eventually, dragging me down in fits and starts. In my dreams, red light pulsed under my skin like molten wine. My veins glowed with it, bright and terrifying, as if someone had poured power into me the way I had poured wine over Noah's head. When I raised my hands, light spilled from my fingertips, painting the stone walls in ripples. I woke with a gasp. The room was too warm. The fire had burned low, but heat pressed against my skin as if the air itself were feverish. Sweat clung to my neck. I pushed the blankets back, heart pounding. On the bedside table, the candle I had snuffed before sleep was burning again, its flame tall and steady. I stared at it, breath shallow. Had someone entered while I slept? Had I relit it in some half-dream state? Neither answer settled comfortably in my mind. As I lay back down, letter from my parents crinkled under my pillow, the warmth refused to fade. It felt as if something inside me had shifted during the night, just a fraction. Like a door left not quite as firmly closed. By morning, new letters had arrived. One from my mother, all brittle affection. One from my younger sister, full of frantic questions and confessions. "Father is furious. Noah says he forgives you if you come home quickly. Everyone is talking. Please do not make this worse." The pressure to return curled around my ribs like a tightening band. I folded the letters, set them beside the inexplicably relit candle, and looked at my hands. Nothing glowed. No sparks danced in my palms. Yet when I closed my eyes, I could still feel it. A faint hum under my skin, like a secret keeping its own counsel. Wolves and whispers, I thought. Something was changing. And I was no longer entirely sure it was only my life. The storm arrived before we did. By the time Mara found me that evening, the sky beyond the stronghold windows was a restless sheet of gray, thunder muttering at the edges like an argument waiting for a spark. "His Majesty requests your presence in the library," she said. My stomach dipped. The library was Alexander's favorite haunt, a place of quiet strategy and ink-stained maps. He did not summon people there for casual conversation. "Now?" I asked. "Now," she confirmed. He seemed in a mood. That could mean anything. I smoothed my gown, a simple blue one this time, sleeves tight to my wrists, and followed the familiar route through stone corridors. My fingers brushed the place on my forearm where the healer's band had sat earlier that day, covering the small puncture from his careful needle. He had taken my blood without fuss, citing fatigue, warmth, odd dreams. I had not told him that candles lit themselves around me, or that sometimes when I grew angry the air vibrated just enough to make tapestries shiver. "Best to rule some things out," he'd said. "You have been under strain." Under strain. That was one way to describe it. The library door stood slightly ajar. Light spilled out. The warm gold of lamps, the paler flicker of candles. I paused, hand on the carved wood, then pushed it wider. Alexander stood with his back to me, braced on the edge of a heavy table strewn with maps and scrolls. Shelves climbed to the ceiling on every wall, packed with leather spines. Rain hammered against the tall windows, wind pushing stray droplets under the frames to glitter on the stone. He did not turn immediately. "Enter," he said. His voice was calm, but the edges were too sharp. "You asked for me?" I said. "Sit," he replied. I chose a chair near the table, folding my hands in my lap. The storm outside echoed the tension in the room. Even my wolf bristled uneasily, pacing just under my skin. "What have I done now?" I tried, aiming for lightness. "Talked your warriors into another compromise? Offended a council of elders without noticing?" He finally looked at me. His pale eyes were darker than usual, silver clouded like a winter sky. "The healer came to see me," he said. "About you." My throat went dry. "Oh." "He ran his tests twice," Alexander continued. "Thought he'd made a mistake the first time." He pushed away from the table and came around to the other side, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to keep his face in view. "You are with child, Kate." The words landed with more force than any blow. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the sound of rain and the drum of my own pulse. Images flickered by. My mother's hands braiding my hair when I was small, Noah's smirk in the tavern, Alexander's fingers closing around my wrist in a dark corridor, the way the candle on my bedside had lit itself. "With child," I echoed, as if I had never heard the phrase before. "Yes," his jaw tightened. "Mine, I assume, unless you have been taking walks with other kings when I am not looking." Despite the shock, a snort escaped me. "There has only been you," I said. Then the humor crumbled, leaving only the enormity of it. I had not thought. "Neither had I," he said quietly. We stared at each other, the storm breathing against the windows. "Say something else," I whispered. Such as, this is not the catastrophe it feels like," I said. Or perhaps, "Congratulations, Kate. You have complicated everything beyond repair." One corner of his mouth twitched, but there was no real amusement in it. "It is both," he admitted. "A catastrophe. And," he exhaled, "significant." I rose too quickly, the room tilting for a second before settling. "What will you do?" I asked. The old habit slipped out, assuming decisions about my life lived first in other people's mouths. He frowned. "What will we do?" he corrected. "You are not alone in this." The word we steadied something inside me. Lightning flashed white, followed almost instantly by thunder that shook the glass. "I suppose this gives my parents one more reason to drag me home in chains," I said, aiming for brittle instead of broken. "Imagine the scandal. Their daughter carrying the Alpha King's child before a mating contract is even discussed." "They will not drag you anywhere," Alexander said. "Not while you want to stay." "And if I decide to go?" I asked. His expression didn't change, but his hands curled around the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. "Then I will have to live with that," he said. "And so will they, and so will you." The honesty hurt more than any comforting lie could have. Something inside me rebelled at the thought of being dissected like a problem. I turned away, moving to one of the tall windows. Outside, rain blurred the courtyard into smeared shadows. "I did not plan for this," I said, my voice low. Any of it. I poured wine on a man's head because I could not breathe under my own obedience anymore. I climbed onto your horse thinking I had bought myself one night to think, maybe two. I did not know those decisions came with this. I pressed my palm flat against the cold glass. Heat pressed back from my own skin. Do you regret them? He asked. The decisions? I closed my eyes. Images flashed. The tavern, the road, his hand catching my wrist, the way his gaze softened when I calmed his warriors, the echo of his mouth on mine that one stolen moment in a shadowed alcove. No. And the consequence? I do not know yet, I whispered. Ask me when I can think without feeling like my skin is 2 sizes too small. He crossed the room so quietly I did not hear him until he was at my shoulder. The healer noticed something else, he said. Your body temperature is higher than normal. Your pulse fluctuates strangely when you are agitated. He asked if you had experienced any unusual phenomena. I laughed once. Sharp. Define unusual. Candles relighting themselves. Wolves sensing something they cannot name when you enter a room. Guards swearing they heard the stones hum when you walked by. I thought I was imagining those, I murmured. Well. His tone was dry. Either we are both imagining the same things, or something in you is changing. And it began, apparently, around the time you arrived here. Around the time we began. He hesitated, testing each other's patience. Lightning forked again, illuminating our reflections in the glass. His tall, dark shape, my slighter figure, eyes too bright. Say it, I said. Around the time we started touching, color flared along his cheekbones. Yes, he said. Around then. Silence stretched, filled with rain and the low rumble of thunder. The library's lamps flickered under some stray draft. It is not just your child I fear for, he added softly. Power emerging without control tends to end badly for the vessel, not just those around them. The vessel, I repeated. That is one way to describe the woman carrying your heir. His jaw flexed. You know that is not what I meant. I know, I admitted. But it is hard to ignore the implication when everyone keeps talking about what this means for pacts, for alliances, for magic. Less so about what it means for my ribs, and spine, and life. His eyes darkened. Then let us talk about that. He stepped closer, so close the heat of him bled through the thin fabric of my sleeve. His hand lifted, hovering near my cheek, then curled into a fist. You are shaking, he said. Probably from all the metaphors, I said weakly. From fear, he countered. Of what? Me, them, yourself? Yes, I said. All of the above. The honesty pulled something taut between us. For weeks we had danced around it. The pull that was not lightning but a steady, insistent tide. The near misses in corridors. The way my wolf pricked her ears when he entered a room. Duty versus freedom, he said quietly. That is our argument, is it not? You want to choose yourself for once. I want to keep my territory stable and my people safe. And now there is something inside you that may threaten both those aims. I never asked for that, I whispered. Neither did I ask for a mate who throws wine and changes the air, he said. Yet here we are. The word mate hung between us, heavier than it had any right to be. Lightning hit close enough that the glass rattled in its frame. The lamps guttered. One went out entirely before flaring to life again, brighter than before. We both looked up. See? I said shakily. Unusual phenomena. Kate, he said. I turned to him, already knowing it was a mistake. He was closer than I had realized, breath brushing my lips, eyes fixed on my face as if searching for something written there. The tension that had been building since the road, since the first time his fingers circled my wrist, snapped taut. This is a bad idea, I murmured. Almost all the best ones are, he replied. And then his mouth was on mine. There was nothing careful about it. No tentative testing, no polite exploration. Weeks of restraint poured into that first kiss, crashing through both of us like the storm outside. His hand cupped the back of my neck, angling my head. Mine fisted in his shirt, dragging him closer. Heat surged under my skin, racing along my veins, pooling where his body pressed against mine. My wolf, usually quietly compliant, rose with a snarl of fierce satisfaction. Finally, thunder cracked overhead, so loud it shook dust from the ceiling. I dimly registered the lamps along the walls flaring brighter, their flames stretching high and wild. The hairs on my arms lifted, as if the air itself had become charged. Alexander tore his mouth from mine with a sharp inhale. "Do you feel that?" he asked, voice rough. "Yes," I gasped. Every inch of me tingled, as if I had been too close to lightning and somehow survived. He glanced around. The closest candle's flame burned nearly twice its normal size, white hot at the core. A faint tremor ran through the stone beneath our feet, subtle but unmistakable. "It is responding to you," he said. "Or to us," I countered. His hand was still at my neck, thumb resting where my pulse hammered. The contact sent another shiver of warmth through me, and the nearest lamp flickered in answer, brightening, then dimming, like a heartbeat. He swore softly. "This is dangerous," he said. I had gathered that. He forced himself to step back, breaking the contact. The rush of power ebbed, though not entirely. A residual hum lingered at the base of my spine. "We cannot." He stopped, jaw clenching. "We must be careful. Until we understand what this is, I cannot risk you, or my people, by indulging in what we both clearly want." The bluntness of it stole my breath. Desire did not vanish just because he named it as a liability. If anything, acknowledging it made it more real. "And the child?" I asked. The word still felt strange on my tongue. "We will monitor," he said, closely. "The healer will return. We will see if these surges coincide with changes in you." In it, the way he said it, with a mix of awe and dread, twisted something in my chest. "I am not a weapon, Alexander," I said quietly. "I know," he said. "But something in you might be. That is the problem." Days blurred after that, measured in cautious glances and accidentally on purpose distance. He avoided touching me unless absolutely necessary, and even then his hands were quick, clinical. My wolf sulked, restless. Yet the bond between us did not weaken. If anything, awareness sharpened. When he entered a room, my body knew before my mind. The fine hairs at the nape of my neck lifted, my pulse quickened. Once, during a strategy meeting, his gaze brushed mine across the table and a low thrum started in my chest, answered by a faint flicker from the hearth fire. The healer came, as promised. He pressed cool fingers to my abdomen, listened, hummed. "Strong," he said. "Too early for much detail, but definitely there, and your temperature continues to run high." "Is that dangerous?" I asked. "Not yet," he said, "but combined with the anomalies." His eyes darted to Alexander. "We proceed with caution." That night, I found sleep elusive. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the echo of the library, the surge of power, the way the flames had reached for us. Eventually, frustration drove me from my bed. The corridor outside my room was dim, lit by a few low-burning torches. I padded along it barefoot, wrap thrown over my nightdress, drawn almost against my will toward the higher tower where Alexander often brooded over maps. I told myself I only wanted to talk, to demand a plan that did not involve locking myself away like some dangerous artifact. Halfway up the spiral stairs, a familiar scent caught me, cedar and cold air, with a thread of something wilder. He was coming down. We stopped one step apart, breathing the same thin tower air. "Could not sleep?" he asked. "Could you?" I countered. His mouth twisted. "No." We stood there, the silence thick as wool, the narrow stairwell forcing us close. My wrap slipped from one shoulder. His gaze followed the movement before he caught himself and looked away, fingers digging into the stone railing. "This is unbearable," he said softly. "The not touching?" I asked. "The pretending it does not cost us anything," he replied. I should have turned back then. Instead, I took one more step up, bringing us chest to chest on the narrow stone. "Then stop pretending," I said. For a moment, I thought he would. His hand lifted, hovered near my face, then moved to brace on the wall just above my head instead. "Kate," he warned. My heart hammered. "Alexander." The air shifted. I do not know which of us moved first this time. One moment we were separated by a breath. The next his mouth was crushed to mine again, the stone railing hard at my back. My arms went around his neck. His hands gripped my hips, pulling me flush against him. Heat roared through me, fiercer than in the library. The stairwell torches flared, their flames leaning inward as if drawn, shadows spasming on the walls. The stones hummed a low note in my bones. Deeper, beneath my own heartbeat, another rhythm pulsed. When his palm slid instinctively around to my lower belly, a shock ran through both of us. The power spiked, not outward this time but inward, curling around that new, fragile center. The torches did not explode. Instead, their flames steadied, becoming clear and bright as stars. He tore his mouth away, eyes wide, lips parted. "Did you feel that?" he whispered. "Yes," I breathed. My knees trembled. All of it. His hand remained, splayed over my abdomen. Beneath it, a warmth answered, distinct from the heat flooding the rest of me. "It responds to touch," he said. "Ours, to intimacy." "Then we should probably stop," I said, though every part of me screamed against it. "We should," he agreed. Neither of us moved. The torch's light haloed his hair, cast his face in angles and shadow. In his eyes, fear warred with something softer, something like reverence. "Whatever this child is," he said slowly, "it is not ordinary. And neither are you." The words should have terrified me. They did. But underneath the fear, something else unfurled, a fragile, defiant thread of wonder. "I was never ordinary," I said, attempting flippancy and failing. "I just spent a long time pretending to be." He huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. "We will figure this out," he said, carefully, slowly. No more reckless stairwell experiments. "So we schedule the reckless ones?" I asked. His mouth curved despite himself. "Go back to bed, Kate," he murmured, "before I forget every oath I ever made about restraint." I went, eventually, my body still humming, the echo of his hand on my belly lingering long after the touch ended. In the quiet of my room, as I lay staring at the ceiling, a gentle warmth pulsed within me, not dangerous this time but oddly reassuring. Fire under skin, not just threat. Maybe, just maybe, also promise. They arrived on a clear, cold morning, when the sky was cruelly blue and the world had the nerve to look peaceful. Mara found me in the training yard, where I had been pretending I knew what to do with a knife while Rian corrected my grip. "Lady Kate," she called. "You are requested in the Great Hall." Requested was doing a lot of work. One look at her tight mouth and I knew. "Who?" I asked, though my stomach already knew the answer. "Your pack," she said. "A delegation, and they have not come quietly." The knife slipped in my hand. Rian caught it before it hit the ground. "Go," he said softly. "And remember, you are not the same woman who left them." I wished I believed him. The Great Hall had been rearranged for diplomacy instead of feasting. The long tables pushed back. Space cleared in the center. Alexander sat in the high-backed chair that served as a throne when he bothered with one, posture relaxed but undeniably in command. Facing him stood my parents, 3 of our senior warriors, and Noah. My mother's hair was pinned perfectly, not a strand out of place. My father's mouth was a flat line. Noah wore his best formal coat, the one embroidered with his family crest, and the expression of a man about to negotiate a minor inconvenience, not a life. Every eye turned when I entered. "Kate," my mother breathed, taking a step forward as if to embrace me, then stopping herself, glancing around at the watching northern wolves. "Lady Kate," my father corrected, inclining his head to Alexander. "We thank you for keeping our daughter safe." Safe. As if I were a parcel. Alexander's gaze flicked to me, then back to my family. "Your daughter sought shelter on my road," he said. "I do not make a habit of abandoning those who ask for it." "Of course," my father said quickly. "We are grateful, and eager to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding." My mother's eyes softened on me, full of love and worry and expectation all tangled together. Noah stepped forward. He had the grace to look contrite, though I could not tell how much of it was practiced. "Kate," he said, "you look well." "You look dry," I replied before I could stop myself. Color climbed his neck. "I deserved that," he said. "I deserved worse. I am sorry, truly. I drank too much. I was stupid. It meant nothing." Stupid, nothing. Words meant to minimize, to smooth. "And the woman in your lap?" I asked. "What did she mean?" His jaw tightened. "A mistake, one I will not repeat." My father cleared his throat. "We are not here to rehash tavern gossip," he said. "We are here to restore what was damaged before it grows into something irreversible." By restore, he meant erase. Alexander had been quiet, watching. Now he spoke, voice mild. "And what exactly do you propose?" he asked. "A discreet resolution," my father said. "Our daughter returns with us. She acknowledges that her actions at the Golden Heart were impulsive, driven by emotion but not reflective of her true intentions. She offers a public apology to Noah and his parents. The mating proceeds as planned. The alliance stands. No one need lose face." Noah nodded, seizing the script. "I am willing to forgive," he said, "to put this behind us. I know you, Kate. You are not like that. You lost your temper. But we can fix this." "We," I repeated, "by which you mean I apologize and you accept." He smiled, as if I had just proven his point. "You have always been quick-tongued," he said. "It is one of the things I enjoy about you. But certain things are better handled quietly." My mother stepped closer, fingers twisting in her skirts. "Please, Katie," she murmured. "Think of what is at stake. The hunter trade routes, the border patrol agreement, your sister's future matches. One moment of anger should not ruin so much." I felt that last sentence like a knife. One moment. As if the tavern had been the whole story, not the splinter finally breaking skin. "And what does Lady Kate want?" Alexander asked. The room stilled. My father frowned, as if the question were slightly ridiculous. "She wants what is best for her family," he said. "She has always been dutiful." Alexander's gaze never left my face. "I did not ask you," he said softly. "I asked her." Heat crawled up my throat. Every eye in the hall pricked against my skin. My parents, Noah, Alexander's inner circle, the watchful northern guards along the walls. The child inside me seemed suddenly heavy, as if it knew the balance of my world was tilting. The word stuck. Years of training pressed down, all the times I had swallowed no in favor of keeping the peace. My mother's eyes shone with unshed tears. My father's shoulders were rigid. Noah looked hopeful, as if we were on the verge of a mutual concession instead of a personal catastrophe. I felt Alexander beside me without looking at him, the steady weight of his presence, the way my wolf leaned toward it. "May I speak with my family privately?" I asked. Alexander inclined his head. "You may use the side chamber," he said. "Take the time you need." Noah opened his mouth. "Your Majesty, with respect, this is not your hall," Alexander said, not unkindly. "And not your decision alone." The side chamber was smaller, with a single window and a round table. As soon as the door shut behind us, my mother seized my hands. "Oh, Katie," she whispered. "What have you done to yourself?" The question stung because I had been asking it in my own head for days. "What have I done?" I echoed. "I caught my future husband in a tavern with another woman draped over him like a shawl. I refused to pretend it was nothing." My father's mouth tightened. "No one is asking you to pretend it was nothing, only to understand that men—" "No," I cut in. "Do not finish that sentence. You have taught me all my life that vows matter, that the pack's word is its bond. Yet when it comes to Noah, suddenly intent is negotiable?" He closed his eyes briefly, as if praying for patience. "This is not about Noah alone," he said. "This is about us, about your sisters, your cousins, everyone who depends on our standing. The hunters are powerful. Offending them puts many at risk. And what about the risk of me tying myself to a man who has already shown me what he thinks my forgiveness is worth?" My voice shook. "Do I not count among the people you are supposed to protect?" My mother flinched. "You do," she said, voice thick. "You are our first concern. But there are ways to protect you that do not involve defying every expectation. Noah has promised." "Promised what?" I asked. "That he will never again be alone in a room with wine and women? How generous." Noah spread his hands, exasperated. "I am trying, Kate," he said. "I am here, humbling myself, in front of another alpha, no less. I was wrong. I was stupid. But marriages survive worse than a tavern flirtation. You are blowing this out of proportion." "You are the one who thinks midnight kisses with strangers are small," I said. "Do you intend to check with me before you decide what counts as serious?" He stared at me, something hardening behind his eyes. "What do you want?" he asked. "Truly, because it sounds like nothing I can give will be enough." Honesty rose in my throat, hot and dangerous. "I want to be with someone who is afraid to lose me," I said. "Not someone who is only afraid to lose the alliances I represent." Silence crashed down. My parents exchanged a look, full of grief and calculation. "You have changed," my father said slowly. "I have stopped pretending," I corrected. My mother's eyes filled. "If you walk away from this," she whispered, "you do not just walk away from Noah. You jeopardize all of us. Do you understand that, Katie?" "Yes," I said. "That is why this hurts so much." A knock sounded at the door. Mara's voice came through, discreet. "Lady Kate, the Alpha King wishes to know how much longer you will require." "Tell him," I said, never taking my eyes off my parents, "that we will return shortly." Her footsteps receded. Noah straightened his coat. "I will say this once more," he said. "Come home. We will stand together, you and I, and make this appear as a youthful misstep. In time, people will forget. If you stay here, you will be the girl who defied her pack and climbed into another Alpha's bed. You will never escape that story." I thought of Alexander's hand on my belly, the way the torches had steadied when we touched, of the fire that answered him, and only him. "I am already that girl," I said quietly, "whether I stay or go." When we returned to the great hall, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Alexander rose as we approached. His face was unreadable, the careful, neutral mask of a king who had seen too many dramas play out on stone floors. "Well?" he asked. My parents looked at me. Hope and fear tangled in equal measure. Noah's jaw was set. My own heart was a drum in my ears. "I have not decided," I said. The words seemed to surprise everyone, including me. I had thought I would be forced into yes or no. Instead, a third path opened. "Not yet." "My family has made their wishes clear," I continued. "I understand what returning would protect, but I am not ready to consent to a life I cannot respect. I need more time." My father stiffened. "Time will not make this easier," he said. "Perhaps not," I agreed, "but it might make me surer, and I will not bind myself to anyone out of panic." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Noah's eyes flashed, equal parts anger and wounded pride. Alexander's control, which had been so steady, cracked just a little. Only because I knew him now could I see it. The slight unclenching of his shoulders, the way his breath left him as if he had been holding it. He inclined his head to my family. "You have my assurance," he said, "that Lady Kate will not be coerced here. You may remain as guests for a few days while she thinks, or you may return home and await her decision there." My father's voice was tight. "We will stay." "Very well," Alexander said. "Mara will see to your rooms." As the delegation filed out, my mother brushed her fingers over mine, a silent plea. Noah did not look at me. When the hall finally emptied, leaving only Alexander and a few distant guards, the silence felt cavernous. "You surprised me," he said. "I surprised myself," I admitted. He descended from the dais, stopping a few paces away. For once, he did not bother with distance. The bond between us hummed, raw and exposed. "I meant what I said," he told me. "If you choose to go, I will not stop you. I will not drag you back, or undermine your name. I will hate it, but I will not cage you." The certainty in his voice hurt more than any ultimatum. "What are you afraid of?" I asked, because we had both been circling the question. He did not hesitate. "I am afraid that whatever grows in you will be feared, hunted, used," he said. "If you go back to a pack that sees you as leverage first and a person second, they will grasp at that power with greedy hands. And I am afraid," his voice roughened, "that if I keep you here, my fear of losing you will make me just as selfish." The rawness of it stole my breath. "I have spent half my life not wanting to be anyone's weakness," he went on. "Now I have to accept that you already are." Something inside my chest cracked open at that. Not the polite, dutiful love my parents wanted for me, not the smooth apologies Noah offered, but something fierce and flawed and real. "The choice is still mine," I said, though the weight of it pressed on my ribs. "That much I will not surrender." His gaze held mine, unflinching. "Good," he said, "because whatever comes next, I would rather stand beside a woman who chose her path with her eyes open than a queen who was pushed into a role she never wanted. The words did not lighten the burden, but they did something else, quieter and more dangerous. They made me want to choose him. No one warned me how loud silence can be in a castle full of listening walls. My family had been here 3 days. 3 days of careful meals and colder conversations, of my mother's eyes following me like prayers, and my father's jaw clenched so hard I could almost hear his teeth grind. 3 days of Noah moving through the stronghold as if he owned it, charming servants, laughing with warriors, slipping into every space I tried to claim as mine. On the 4th evening, he cornered me. I had retreated to the guest chamber meant for my sisters if they ever visited, a small room off the east corridor. I thought I was alone. I had even let myself breathe, just a little relieved to be away from everyone's expectations. The door opened without a knock. "Kate," Noah said. "Finally." I stiffened. "This is not your room." "No," he agreed, closing the door behind him. "But you have made it very hard to find a moment alone with you. Your northern king guards you like a dragon." "He guards his guest," I said. "There is a difference." He stepped closer, studying me with that practiced blend of disappointment and affection that had always made me want to apologize, even when I knew I was right. "You have changed," he murmured. "This place has changed you. Or it has simply given me space to be who I was always going to become," I said. He ignored that. "I meant what I said," he went on. "I am willing to forgive, to move on. We can still have the life we planned. Pups, rank, influence, you at my side. You only have to stop pushing." "Stop pushing what?" I asked. "Consequences?" His mouth tightened. "This stubbornness of yours. This need to make everything a grand stand. You poured wine on me in public, Kate. You left. You embarrassed our families. I am here, trying to fix it." He reached for my hand. The moment his fingers brushed mine, the air in the room changed. It went thick, heavy, as if all the heat in the castle had rushed into this one small space. A low hum thrummed under my skin, not the wild crackle I felt with Alexander, but a sour, off-key vibration. My wolf flattened her ears. Noah's eyes widened. "What was that?" "I do not know," I said, pulling back. The hum eased instantly, like a held breath released. He frowned, then shook it off. "Nerves," he said, though he did not sound convinced. "Listen to me." He stepped in again, faster, and this time he did not reach for my hand alone. His palm slid to the back of my neck, the old familiar way he used to guide me through crowded rooms. His mouth lowered toward mine. The hum roared back, louder, angry. The candle on the table between us flickered violently, then flared, spilling wax. Noah jerked away with a curse, shaking his hand. "Something bit me," he snapped, staring at his palm as if expecting teeth marks. "Nothing touched you," I said. My heart was racing, not from his attempted kiss, but from what my body had just done without my consent. "Except me." He looked at me then, really looked, for perhaps the first time since the tavern. "What is happening to you?" he whispered. "Something you are not entitled to manage," I replied, more calmly than I felt. "You should leave, Noah." His mouth hardened. "You think this northern alpha will be gentler with you than I would? You think he will put you before his politics?" His laugh was soft and mean. "You are trading one cage for another and pretending it is freedom." "Perhaps," I said, "but at least this one I am choosing for myself." Anger flashed in his eyes, but fear lived beneath it. Not of me, I realized, but of losing what he had assumed was his. "This is not over," he said, backing toward the door. "Your parents will not allow you to throw your life away over a temper and a strange draft." I almost laughed. "We will see," I said. When he left, the room exhaled. The candle's flame steadied. I pressed a shaking hand to my abdomen. The warmth there pulsed, slow and steady, like a child listening, waiting. "I hear you," I whispered. "I am trying." That night, the storm came back. It rolled over the mountains in low, growling waves, rain lashing the windows, wind rattling shutters. Sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Noah's face twisting when the air turned against him. I felt the wrongness of his touch on my skin, now that I knew what it was to be wanted without entitlement. Eventually, I wrapped a cloak over my nightdress and left my room. The stronghold was a maze of shadows and ember glow at that hour. Torches burned low. The guards at the main stair only nodded as I passed. By now, my restless pacing at odd hours had become another piece of castle lore. I found Alexander where I always seemed to find him when I was most unsettled, in the high tower room with its wide arched windows and map-strewn table. He stood looking out at the storm. Lightning limned his profile, throwing his features into stark relief. He did not turn as I entered. "I thought you might come," he said. "You heard me on the stairs?" I asked. "I felt you," he said simply. My chest tightened. "Noah tried to kiss me," I blurted. "In the guest chamber." Alexander went very still. "Did he succeed?" The question was soft, dangerous. "No." I moved closer, the words tumbling out. The air did something. It hummed. The candle flared. He pulled back like he'd been burned. I think whatever is happening to me does not like him. He is not the only one." His voice had gone flat. I stopped beside him, close enough to see the tension in his jaw. "You told me you would not interfere," I said. "I also told you I am selfish," he replied. "Both things are still true." We stood there, watching the rain carve silver lines down the glass. Lightning flashed again, bathing the room in white for a heartbeat. "I am tired," I said suddenly, "of being weighed, measured, negotiated over, of everything I am becoming being turned into someone else's strategy. My parents want my apology. Noah wants his reputation. The Packs want their alliance. I want you alive," he cut in. "And mine. In that order, though some days the order blurs." The honesty stole my breath. "This power," he went on, gesturing vaguely toward me, "answers when I touch you. It calms when you feel safe. It recoils when you are threatened. Whatever it is, it ties you to me more than to anyone else. That terrifies me, and I still do not want to let you go." Silence stretched, thick as the night outside. "I am afraid too," I whispered. "Of what choosing you will cost my family. Of what staying with them will cost me. Of what this child will be. Of what I will be. Standing beside a king when I was raised to stand behind a beta." His hand lifted, fingers hovering near my cheek. "Come here," he said. I went. The first touch was not a kiss. It was his palm resting against my spine, warm through the thin fabric, the pressure steady. My body recognized him with a startling sense of rightness. The hum inside me rose, not wild, not out of control, just present, like a familiar song turned up. "Last chance to run," he murmured. "I ran already," I said. "This is me stopping." His mouth found mine. This time there was no violence to it, no crash like in the library. The storm outside raged, but inside the tower the air folded around us, soft and thick. Heat poured through me where his hands slid up my back, along my ribs, down to my hips. The power answered, yes, but not with flaring flames and shaking stones. It curled around us in a kind of hot, luminous cocoon, brightening the room without burning it. Candles along the walls brightened, but their flames stayed tight, controlled, stretching toward us like flowers to the sun and then settling. My skin tingled everywhere he touched, and underneath it all, the steady, grounded warmth at my core pulsed in time with our hearts. We moved to the wide couch near the maps, losing awkwardness in shared urgency. Clothes became obstacles, removed with muttered curses and broken laughter. His hands were careful over my belly, reverent even now. The way his expression shifted when he felt the answering heat there almost undid me. "You are sure?" he asked, voice ragged. "I am choosing," I said. "This. You. Us. No one else gets to name it." After, we lay tangled in the dim glow of candles that seemed in no hurry to gutter. My skin still hummed, but it was a low, content vibration now, like embers banked under ash. Alexander's hand rested over my stomach. Beneath it, that inner warmth pulsed, stronger than before, but contained. "It is calmer," he said. "So am I," I answered. He turned his head to look at me. "It responds to how you feel," he murmured. "When you were frightened with Noah, it lashed out. Here. With me." He trailed off, as if embarrassed by the implication. "Here I feel safe," I said, and claimed, "On my terms." His eyes darkened. "Then gods help anyone who tries to take you from me." The final meeting with both families came the next day. We gathered in a smaller council chamber this time, around a circular table. My parents, Noah, Alexander, Rian, and Lysa as witnesses. The air felt thick with expectation. My father began, as he always did. "Have you reached a decision, Kate?" he asked. "Yes," I said. Every head turned. Noah leaned forward. "And?" I folded my hands on the table. They were steady. That felt like a victory. "I will not return to marry you," I said. The words left my mouth without tremor. My mother flinched as if struck. My father went white, then red. Noah's face shuddered. "Is this about him?" Noah jerked his chin toward Alexander. "You have known him a handful of weeks. Me. You have known for years. This is about me," I said. "For once. About the fact that I cannot build a life on pretending that what you did does not matter. If I marry you now, after all this, I teach everyone, including myself, that my boundaries are decorations, not walls. You are willing to throw away everything we built for one mistake," he said bitterly. "I am unwilling to spend the rest of my life teaching you that you can hurt me without consequence," I replied. "That is not a partnership. That is a slow erosion." My father found his voice. "You are condemning us to years of strained trade, to possible conflict. I am refusing to be a solution you trade like a crate of grain," I said, meeting his eyes. "You taught me that honor matters. I am holding you to your own lessons." My mother's tears fell silently now. I ached to comfort her. But I could not do it by sacrificing myself. "I love you," I told them both. "That does not mean I owe you my future." Noah pushed back his chair, bitter laugh cutting the air. "Congratulations, Your Majesty," he said to Alexander. "You have stolen yourself a very principled problem." Alexander's expression did not change. "I offered her a choice," he said. "She took it. No one steals what walks willingly." Rian's mouth twitched. Lysa watched me with a considering, almost approving gaze. My father sagged, some fight leaving him. My mother reached for his hand. "This is your final word?" he asked me. "It is," I said. "I will visit, when tempers cool. I will help where I can, but my life will not be written against my will." The silence that followed was heavy, but it was honest. When my family finally left, the echo of their footsteps lingered long after the doors closed. In the quiet that followed, Alexander stood beside me, not touching, just present. "You chose," he said. "I did," I answered. "And not because of magic, or bonds, or power," he added. "Because I am tired of living on lies," I said. "For once, I want a truth that does not poison me every time I taste it." He reached for my hand then, fingers threading through mine. "Then we will build one," he said. "Flawed, dangerous, ours." The power under my skin pulsed in agreement, warm and bright, like a flame that had finally found the hearth it wanted to burn in. Scandal, it turns out, does not leave. It lingers in doorways and echoes in the spaces between words. My family's delegation rode out at dawn 2 days after my refusal. The courtyard was all chilled air and stiff farewells. My mother hugged me so tightly my ribs protested, whispering, "I love you, I love you, I love you," into my hair like a spell that might bend my decision backward. My father's embrace was brief, his pride too wounded to allow more, but his hand shook when it landed on my shoulder. "Do not stay away forever," he said. It was not forgiveness, but it was a crack the future could slip through. Noah did not attempt to touch me. He bowed, precise and shallow. "I hope he is worth what you have burned," he said. "I did not set fire to my life," I answered. "I stopped letting you hold the matches." He rode away without looking back. The gossip that followed traveled faster than horses. Messages came from neighboring packs, some cautious, some curious, a few quietly admiring. I became a story. The noble Omega who refused her arranged mating, the woman who walked into the Alpha King's stronghold and did not walk out again. My siblings' letters arrived hidden in more respectable correspondence. From my younger sister Elin, "You are mad and wonderful." Father stomps around like a storm cloud, but I heard him tell Mother last night that at least you did not lie. When I am old enough, I am coming to visit, even if they chain me to the bed. Write back and tell me if the Alpha King actually smiles or if that was a rumor. From my older brother, Bram, "You have always been too brave for the rest of us. I am angry with you and proud of you in equal measure. Tell your king that if he hurts you, I will find a way to start an interpack war all by myself. I read those letters late at night, curled near the fire in my sitting room, and let them stitch closed some of the raw places my parents' departure had left. Life at the stronghold adjusted, as if it had been expecting this all along. Word of my pregnancy spread quietly but efficiently. No announcements, no formal proclamations, only the way Mara began insisting I not climb ladders, the way Rian shifted my lessons from knife-throwing to strategy, the way Lysa started leaving extra notes on laws regarding succession and mixed-pack heirs. The wolves noticed other things. The first time I walked through the central courtyard after my decision, conversations stuttered and slowed. Warriors paused mid-spar, eyes tracking me. It was not the usual curiosity reserved for strange, noble guests. It was something heavier, older. An older scout, scarred, gray at the temples, stepped out of my path, then bowed, not low-like to Alexander, but with a kind of instinctive deference. "My lady," he said. I stopped, thrown. "You do not have to." "It is not have to," he interrupted gently. "It is feel to. There is something." He touched his chest, where his wolf lived. "It sits us down, makes us listen." After that, it became a pattern. An Omega in the laundry room straightened when I entered, hand pressing to her heart. A pair of pups fell silent mid-argument, noses lifting as if catching some new scent, eyes wide and solemn for a moment before chaos resumed. Even the stronghold's old battle-hardened gatekeeper tipped his head when I passed, as though acknowledging weather he could not yet name. Inside me, the power no longer felt like a stranger. It was still wild at the edges, still capable of surging when fear or anger spiked. But most days it was a steady warmth, a low-banked glow that pulsed in time with the tiny life growing there. Alexander and I learned to move around it together. We did not stop touching each other. We learned instead how to do it without waking storms. His hand at the small of my back as we walked through the hall. My fingers linked with his under council tables, while elders debated trade. Slow, careful kisses in shadowed alcoves that made my skin tingle but did not set the torches flaring. Every time we went too far, pushing past careful into hungry, the power answered, a sudden brightening of firelight, a ripple through the stones. We would laugh, breathless, pull back, and wait for the air to settle. "You are teaching it," he said one night as we watched the hearth together. "What is danger and what is not? Maybe it is teaching me," I replied. On the night everything finally felt, less like threat and more like promise, winter had begun to press against the mountains. Snow fell in lazy spirals outside Alexander's chamber windows, muffling the world. Inside, the fire burned low and steady, throwing soft orange light across the room. The heavy curtains were drawn, shutting us in with the heat, the shadows, and the quiet. I wore one of the simple dresses I favored now, loose at the waist to accommodate the new curve of my stomach. It was still a small swell, more suggestion than certainty, but when I lay down, it rose under the fabric like a question mark. Alexander came from his desk, shedding the day's weight as he crossed the room. No crown, no formal coat, just a loose shirt, sleeves rolled, throat bare. He sat on the edge of the bed, then turned so his back rested against the carved headboard. With a gentle tug, he drew me between his legs, my spine against his chest, his arms wrapping around me in a circle that felt like the safest prison in the world. His palms came to rest over my belly. Fingers splayed. For a moment, nothing happened. Just his warmth, my breath, the soft crackle of the fire. Then, slowly, a glow bloomed beneath his hands. It was not dramatic, not a flash or flare, more like embers catching breath. A faint, reddish gold light seeped through the fabric, painting his fingers, my skin, the linen of my dress. My own breath caught. "Do you see it?" I whispered. "Yes," he breathed. His voice was wrong, roughened not by desire this time, but by something older. Wonder, fear, awe twisted together. The glow pulsed, slow and gentle, in time with the beat I could feel deep inside. It did not reach for the walls, did not shudder the stones. It just existed, present, alive. His chin came to rest on my shoulder. "Extraordinary," he said softly. "Terrifying," I countered. "Both," he agreed. Like most worthwhile things. We watched in silence for a while, letting the moment stretch. "Do you ever think," I asked quietly, "what might have happened if I had done what they wanted? Gone home, apologized, married Noah. He was quiet long enough that I thought he might not answer. "Yes," he said finally. "I think you would have become very good at disappearing without ever leaving the room. I think your power would have twisted inward instead of outward, and I think the world would have lost this." His hands pressed slightly against the glow. "You think this is good for the world?" I asked. "I think it is honest," he said. "A child conceived not in duty but in defiance, in choice, in fear and desire and stubbornness, all knotted together. Power born from a night when you chose yourself. That kind of thing tends to shake foundations." I let my head fall back against his shoulder, eyes closing. "I never wanted to shake anything," I admitted. "I just wanted to breathe." "Sometimes," he murmured, lips brushing my temple, "breathing is the first rebellion." We sat like that until the glow slowly dimmed, fading back to the quiet warmth I had come to know. The fire in the hearth settled, logs collapsing inward with a soft sigh. Outside, snow thickened against the glass. "What kind of home do we make for this child?" I asked at last. "The kind where they are never told their worth lies in how useful they are to other people," he said without hesitation. "Where power is a responsibility, not a leash. Where they know their mother once poured wine on a man for daring to treat her like a possession, and their father considers that act sacred." I laughed, the sound small and disbelieving and full all at once. "Sacred?" I repeated. "The night you refused to be less than you are," he said. "Call it whatever word you like. I am grateful for it." I thought of the tavern again, the sticky floor, the smell of ale, Noah's smug cup raise, and for the first time, the memory did not sting. It felt like the hinge of a door I had stepped through and never intended to close. "We will make mistakes," I said. "With them, with each other." "Undoubtedly," he replied. "But they will be our mistakes, not the ones our parents handed us like heirlooms." He shifted, pressing a kiss to the side of my neck, then another to the place where my jaw met my ear. "Sleep," he murmured. "The world will be loud again tomorrow." For now, though, the storm had passed. The scandal remained in whispers and sidelong looks, but it no longer owned the center of my life. That belonged to this quiet room, this stubborn king, this strange, luminous child pulsing under my skin like a secret sunrise. I closed my eyes and let myself believe that we could shape a home from this, out of stone and stubbornness, and the memory of wine running red over a man who had never really seen me. And because this story is not just mine, I want to ask you, listening to it unfold, where are you watching from right now? And what has been your favorite moment so far, the wine in the tavern, the first crackle of power, or this quiet glow in the dark?